Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, everybody. Today, I must say that I feel a little bit like a successful book writer. J.K. Rowling, remember Harry Potter? You know why? When she was asked to give the commencement address at Harvard University, she started by thanking the organizers for two reasons. The first was for inviting her, of course, and the second one was because the weeks of fear and nausea she had endured at the thought of giving this commencement address had made her lose weight. So I feel a little bit like that spirit today, so I would like to say thanks to the organizers. Let's get back to the time when I was asked to give this speech today at TEDx. So why did I accept? Well, I think that the name TED made me feel comfortable. TED sounds a little bit like teddy bear. There is this feeling of safety and warmness. Then, of course, I was rather more skeptical about the X letter. But after being reassured about the good intentions of the organizers, I started reading about the purpose of TEDx. And it was written, getting people together around ideas worth spreading. And at that moment, I knew that despite it would probably twist my guts to be here, I had to be in Liège today to talk to you about coworking. Because coworking is definitely an idea worth sharing and spreading. Slide before, please. So I'd like to ask you, why are you here today? Why did you come and spend your Saturday, the whole day here in Liège? I guess probably you are interested in science and technology. Maybe you have an entrepreneurial project. Maybe you want to learn new ideas and get to know new people. I'm sure that the only reason why you are here today is because you know that staying home and seeing no one is no good for nobody. Either you are a student, either you are an entrepreneur, either you are an employee. People need social interaction in business and life in general. In one of his speeches, Where Do Ideas Come From?, Stephen Johnson highlighted the fact that England's great flowering of innovation in the last 500 years mostly came from the English coffee houses. And why the coffee houses? Because people take their ideas from other people. They learn from other people. And the coffee houses, though it was not the kind of well-ordered environment you can imagine for innovation, was actually the perfect place for people to run into other people and get to assemble their ideas and finally get new ideas done. So that's where innovation came from over the years, from the coffee houses. Also, a few years ago, a professor named Kevin Dunbar decided to videotape several labs around the world. He wanted to know where the people made the discoveries. Where do the scientists have their ideas happening? And what is your own opinion about it? What do you think about it? I think most of you, as I was myself, you had the image of the scientist being around in his lab, bending over his microscope, and suddenly exclaiming, "Eureka!" because he finds something interesting in the tissue sample he was observing. Well, actually, no. By looking at the videotapes, Kevin Dunbar found out that the starting point of innovation was not the lab itself, but it was the meeting room of the lab, when all the staff members got together, exchanges their results, the noises, the errors they had encountered during the research. So indeed, the conference table of the meeting of the lab was the starting point for innovation. It was not the lab itself. Co-working spaces are in some ways trying to recreate the collaborative and creative atmosphere of the coffee houses and the scientists' team meetings. Actually, co-working has collaboration and creativity written in its DNA. You know, collaborative creativity, as Charles Leadbeater has defined it, comes out from a group of users or consumers when there is a need for a new product or a new kind of organization, but when mainstream markets and big organizations are failing to respond to that need. Why? Because either they don't see the need, they don't know the need of the users, or because they have no incentive to respond to it. So in this case, the users and the consumers have to create their own solution, and that was the case of coworking. Let me tell you 2 stories of creation of coworking space. The first one is in the US. The first coworking space was launched in 2005 by 2 people, a web consultant and a web programmer, who were working, as it's commonly the case, on their own. So as laptop workers, they were connected to the world via internet, the social media, but they were lacking human presence. You know, when you are working alone from home, who can you talk to except your cat or your goldfish if you don't grab your phone? So that's the reason why they decided to open a shared workplace, which is called Citizen Space in San Jose, California. And the idea was to take the best element of a coffee shop, not the coffee shop in Maastricht, the one with the coffee in it, but and the best element of a workspace, and to combine them to give independent workers the chance to have their own professional space at an affordable price. And the other important point was to gather people around a whole set of values that would be shared by the whole community, values such as openness, collaboration, sustainability. When launching their co-working space, the Citizen Space founders also directly decided to open a Google group to share their resources and useful tips and tricks for other people who would be wanting to open their own co-working space. And that largely contributed to the spread of the co-working trend and the growth of the international co-working community. Please, can you go just a few slides before? Yeah, thank you. In Europe, let me tell you the story of one of the most famous co-working space in Germany. It's called Beta House. It's located in Berlin. Imagine we are back in 2008. It's summer, and there is a design festival which is called DMY, taking place in Berlin. And there is a kind of creative professional who decided to mount a kind of commander raid around a project of innovative workplace that looked to the future. And there is a park just in front of the exhibition hall, and so they decided to show that people could live and work in that unusual environment. So they arranged for getting the Wi-Fi and electricity supply in the park, and people came across the park to go to the exhibition hall, and some of them decided just to stay there and start working under the trees. Of course, don't do that if there is a storm outside, because it may be dangerous. But in this case, it did not happen. So it started working like that. So they started to get also then tables and chairs for the people to get to have a better environment. And it was a decisive moment because the founders of Beta House, they thought that their idea was marginal, and they realized that it was not. It was actually a need for a whole bunch of people who wanted a new place to work and a new place to live. And so 1 year later, they started renting the premises of Beta House in the district of Kreuzberg in Berlin. And Kreuzberg had been the cradle of the punk movement in the 70s, but had since been a rather declining neighborhood, actually. And really, the fact that Beta House decided to set up in Kreuzberg really turned the district into one of Berlin's cultural centers, and has now become the symbol of innovative working methods and entrepreneurial spirit in Germany. So I dare to say that thanks to co-working, there has been a primer change. I would like to say a disruption in the way of people to start thinking about when, where, and who they want to work with. From 30 spaces in 2006, there are now 2,150 co-working spaces in the world. So that's kind of a growth, no? What is the recipe for success of co-working? I have a talk with people and ask them why they are doing co-working, and they will answer you, that's because it helps me work better. It's just that. There was a study which shows that 76% of co-workers saw their productivity rise since joining a co-working space. So not only are you reducing your feeling of isolation, but you may also get twice as much work done than from home when you're in a co-working space. That may sound incredible, isn't it? But that's the truth. That's what we hear in the stories over and over. Michel Tote, a coworker from Cincinnati, calls it reverse peer pressure. That's a kind of positive peer pressure. So when you are working alongside enthusiastic professionals, the creative energy is contagious. And being surrounded by talented people working on awesome projects makes you more excited about your own awesome projects. I'm sure they are. But can anyone be productive with 20 other people in the same room working around you? It is not commonly said that the best way to get work done is to plug on your earbuds and try to make one with your computer? Well, no. Here again, think about the coffee houses. Think about how absolute silence actually is no good for creativity. You know, few innovations came out from the igloos, from the churches or the centuries, isn't it? So, of course, it should mean that a co-working space should be as noisy as a disco. But a moderate level of ambient noise induces abstract thinking and, in turn, creativity. It has been proven by university studies, so you can believe it. Making the most of co-working requires engaging totally with the community, becoming a part of it, and in turn, allowing it to support you. So, in other words, in co-working, you take out what you put in. So the best advice I could give you is get to know your neighbor, participate in social and training activities, pipe up when you can offer advice, when you can give feedback or encouragement to someone. And that's the best way to tap the real value of co-working. You know, companies have multiple employees because it allows them to make the most of different kinds of talents. In a co-working space, you will also find talented programmers, talented writers, journalists, accountants, finance specialists, web consultants. But the cohesion that will exist between these co-workers is usually much stronger than in a company, because people do not only share the same employer, they share the same values and they share the same culture. So the cohesion is very much stronger. We do not talk here about growing your business network in the sense of collecting business cards, but we talk about establishing quality and long-lasting business and human relationships. So that's really the point for you, whether you are working for yourself, whether you are working for a private or a public organization, being surrounded by talents and cohesion. Yeah, next one too. At the local scale, the constitution of a community will also have a very positive impact. Think about the retention of talent, which is a big problem in Europe. Think about the shift in culture, the inspiration for creativity, entrepreneurship, and intrapreneurship we are urging for in Europe. Better interaction with others, random discoveries and opportunities are really among the best outcomes of co-working. One last figure. 87% of co-workers say they have started at least one new project with someone they met in the co-working space. So maybe this project would have never happened if they hadn't joined a co-working space. So in conclusion, as you see, though co-working was a rather unknown concept only 1 or 2 years ago, the movement has rapidly spread around the world and is now durably changing the way people are working and developing new and existing business. So co-working, it's not only about working in a shared workplace. It is first and foremost getting part of an ecosystem where everything is set up for you to meet, learn, share, inspire other entrepreneurs, make business deals, and of course, that you take in what you put out philosophy is really important. So in this changing and globalized environment, it is commonly accepted that Europe needs a fresh cycle of innovation to create a more reactive economy that could absorb shocks and quickly rebound. But I believe that what Europe needs, first and foremost, is one or several new cultures of work, entrepreneurship, creativity, and innovation. And co-working, by creating the conditions for people to share ideas, share values, share inspiration, and by being really the local link that will stronger the relationship between people, though being an internationally connected movement. I truly believe that co-working has proven and will continue to prove that is one of the key to Europe's creative rebirth. Thank you very much for your attention.